Welcome to the Erasmus Foundation podcast. My name is Paul Nugent. Are you looking for answers to life and its meaning? Then this may well be the very podcast you need to listen to. In a series of podcasts, we are going to look at the difficult questions of life and apply spiritual knowledge to find out the answers. Hello. Today, we're going to look at a topic that concerns us all, no doubt. How do we eliminate the pandemic? And today we have Padina talking with me about this. So, greetings, Padina.
Greetings to you.
The first question I have for you, Padina, how has this pandemic come into existence?
Well, in a way, I would say it has been here all the time as a virus. Not as strong as it has become, but nonetheless, viruses like this, and there are many, exist within your world. And usually they are fairly inactive. Almost dormant. But this one has come into activity because man has created the perfect environment to promote this virus into growth and development.
The question is, has this happened before in our history?
Certainly, in some ways it has. It is related to the AIDS virus and other viruses as well, and even has a link to the flu virus as well. And of course, all these viruses have been in existence for a very, very long time, millions of years. And it is simply that they come into stronger force and awareness to mankind when he has created the exact circumstances and environment to allow the virus to propagate and to develop.
Okay, now there's a recent talk in our government at the moment about these booster vaccinations. Now, how much difference is that going to make to us, would you say, Padina?
Well, it is good in one sense that your government and governments in other countries are doing some research and trying to help people the best they can. But what is really the problem is that man is not asking why or how this pandemic has come into being. It is more important, it is vital that man should focus his attention on how this has come about, to understand the cause of this disease and how it has grown into this pandemic, rather than trying to deal with, let us say, the symptoms of the problem and not the real cause. If and when man does turn his attention to researching and investigating the why, he will then discover the cause, what has brought this to happen, and thereby change the environment of your world to prevent the disease from developing further and coming to a halt. And what he needs to do is to investigate the pollution, the poisoning of your world, both in the waters, the seas, the rivers, in your earth, with the spread of chemicals by the farming industry, by the air pollution caused by your traffic, both by cars and lorries and by planes, and other forms of abuse and pollution which mankind is responsible for. Not only causing the temperature changes within your world, which are also a potentially dangerous situation, which is going to cause more destruction than mankind realizes.
Thank you, Bedina. Now, our government at the moment, and I think it's fair to say that they do seem to be running around like headless chickens at present. What should they really be doing to help us through this pandemic?
Well, again, all that they talk of and is heard through your media is how to prevent the spread of this disease by inoculations, by the vaccinations, and by the use of masks. And all of this perhaps has some benefit. But what I would say, more importantly, what mankind is not realizing, the main important aspect of all this is to look at the immune system of mankind. And in a healthy environment, mankind's immune system would tolerate the presence of a certain number of viruses. But people's immune systems are threatened and weakened again by the pollution within your world. So what people must do to prevent catching this disease is to ensure that they eat well and live in clean air and a healthy environment as much as possible, because it is the unhealthy environment that weakens people's immune systems, which allows them to be vulnerable to the disease. And that is happening regardless of whether people are vaccinated or not.
The government then, reading between the lines, is what you've just said there, is focusing completely on the wrong thing.
Indeed.
So should they be then focusing much more on the environment, would you say? Or
indeed, mankind, yes, mankind knows. You had this meeting in Glasgow, the COP26, and it shows how much throughout the world people are really concerned about the increase in climate, temperature, and the effect it is having upon your world. Also, the pollution that I have mentioned is really the cause of all this. The temperature increase is also a very important part of all this. So, to eradicate this disease, man has to put that right first, because as things stand at present, the disease is to become stronger, more virulent, more dangerous to mankind, because he is not listening or responding to the evidence that is in front of his eyes.
No, indeed not. We have another problem at the moment that the scientists are speaking of, and that's bird flu, Bettina, which seems to be very prevalent in this country at the moment.
Indeed.
Is this something we should be concerned about?
Yes, because again, it is evidence of the imbalance in nature caused by man. Yet again, the birds are not responsible for this, although it has been suggested so. Therefore, they have culled and destroyed so many of these poor creatures because it is felt they are spreading the disease. It is man who is causing this problem. The virus within the birds is similar to the viruses within animals. That is not spoken of much either. And it is similar to the virus that is developing within people. I am not just referring to flu, but also your coronavirus as well. They are all related. And the scientists, the people who know all this, should be speaking. There should be films on television to explain all this and to research this and discuss this further. But nothing is happening because nobody seems to be looking at this in any way to take the blame. The response to this should really make a great deal of difference to the activities of man. And perhaps there are those who do know what needs to be done, but are afraid or do not wish to make changes which are necessary. And therefore, man is now walking down a path of destruction. And the vaccines he offers as compensation is not going to make the difference that is required.
It's a little bit like a little plaster on a big wound. Is that right?
Indeed, indeed. And within that wound, it is gangrenous.
Okay. If we're to try and avoid COVID, what do? We lock ourselves in a little room somewhere?
No, that is not the answer, of course not. And really, as I said earlier, what needs to be done is for people to remain as healthy, as strong as possible. And this, I think this has been revealed, and the proof of this has been by showing how the very young who are fit and healthy, generally speaking, have not succumbed to the effects of this virus as much as some adults. And I think that is evident to show how the health of young bodies are able to overcome this disease. But even with the elderly, if they remain healthy with a healthy immune system, then they are not so vulnerable. But of course, one thing we would say in spirit is that mankind lives to a tapestry of life, where the beginnings and the ends of that journey within the earth are according to predeemed will of the great mind who has designed all this. And therefore, when mankind and womankind end their life on the earth, that is when it is meant to happen, that they return home to spirit at the appointed time and circumstances. And that means that whether they have had a vaccination or not, if they are to succumb to the disease and return home in that way, no vaccination or any other means is going to prevent that occurring.
Indeed. How long, Padina, do you think this pandemic will go on for?
It is expected to go on for some years yet, until a time when, through events within the earth, will then really persuade man to take the right activity, the right attitude, the right means to change his behavior and put the world back into a healthy state in balance as it should be.
How will this virus disappear in the end? What will make the change for it to decrease in strength and effectiveness?
Well, it will happen when man changes his behavior. The world is sick at the moment. It is very ill. It is poisoned. It is polluted. The air is damaged. The earth is damaged. It has been poisoned with the chemicals that people use in farming. A lot of the vegetation has disappeared. A lot of poisoning of insects and other creatures has occurred through man's behavior. That should give mankind a warning. It was a warning to tell him to stop with what he was doing. Because again, the consequences of continuing with his activities are inevitably to destroy. And perhaps this disease, which has come about because of man, again, is a further warning that he cannot work in conflict with the natural law. He must work with nature. And only then, by cleaning his planet, will then the environment not be safe and secure for the virus to exist. It will naturally dissipate and disappear, but only when man has changed his behavior.
Okay, Padina. Well, what I wonder really is, does man in his depths of thoughts, in his deep thinking, perhaps really know deep down that he is responsible for this?
I think certain people do. I think a lot of people do. I think those who are in authority, I think perhaps some of them do. They have discussed these things. The scientists who know about all this, they are not stupid. They know what is causing this disease. But no authority has the courage or the determination at this time to stop the use of traffic fumes, of your waters being polluted through industry, the use of fertilizers and chemicals and pesticides by farmers across your world. Who is going to say you must stop doing all these things? That is challenging, really, for mankind generally. But this is what needs to be done. Otherwise, he will not survive. It is as simple as that.
These are very dire times for mankind, Bettina. Is there any way that you could put a positive turn on events here? What we could look forward to, perhaps, in the future?
Well, it is not to last forever. Your world is not going to be destroyed, and your world will come back into balance and health. But it is the consequences of man's misuse of his planet which will eventually ensure that he takes notice and responds accordingly. And only then will your world come back into the state in which it should be. But that is simply in the hands and the responsibility of mankind. Spirit and your God, the great mind, have keen attention and concern for what is happening within your world. And do not think that you are on your own and people are suffering all these difficulties at this time alone. No, that is not so. Spirit are very, very aware of what is going on everywhere, as is the great mind. But all of this is waiting for man to grow up and take responsibility for what he has done and to put it right. And only man should do this.
Thank you very much, Bettina. Is there anything else you'd like to add that we haven't discussed that you'd like to speak about?
No, this is really just simply a plea to anyone who may listen to this, what I have said, to say that man must take responsibility. It is simple as that.
Thank you very much for your time, Bettina.
Thank you. And thank you for this opportunity to allow me to speak. Thank you.
The Erasmus Foundation is a spiritual teaching and healing centre based in Laxfield, Suffolk, in the United Kingdom. We have a webpage, www.erasmus-foundation.org, or email us info@erasmus-foundation.org. Thank you for listening.